Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of NYC Adoptee. This is episode 10, which means it's day 10. And I'm just cruising over here in the West Village. I gotta drop off some dry cleaning. And that's for preparation for this coming weekend. There's a couple weddings coming up this weekend, so that's exciting. If you are new to the channel, this is an exploratory daily vlog that chronicles my journey and my dealings with my identity as a Korean American adoptee, and really just my pursuit of purpose and trying to push out of this period of stuckness in life that I seem to be in. This truck has been riding me for like 5 blocks. This guy hates me. So I'm gonna drop off this dry cleaning, and then I want to get into today's video. Today's video is a little different. It's kind of breaking in theme with the past couple videos. I've been on kind of a linear path of chronicling my earlier years up until and through my first working years. And today, or rather last night, I had kind of a revelation, kind of I had a couple thoughts, and I want to share them with you guys. Oh wow, that got really quiet really quick. So that's the plan for today. Let me drop off this dry cleaning, then we'll get moving. Oh, it is gorgeous today. Absolutely beautiful out. Almost too warm for me to be wearing this getup, so kind of overdressed today. First time I can say that one. This is the Jefferson Clock Tower. Apparently used to be a prison. No more, as of a while ago. Hello. How are you, my friend? I just have one shirt for dry cleaning.
Yes.
Wasn't that perfect? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. Okay, so I don't want to do the whole talking segment here. So I'm going to jump on the bike. We're going to take a little cruise over to TBD. I'm going to sit for a minute and decide where we're going to go. Have a few ideas in mind. And check back in a minute. Oh my God, nobody needs to hear all that beat up old Suburban. Come on now. It's probably your dad's car. All right, I've decided I am going to take you to the first place I lived, like my childhood home, I guess, and show you. I would do the little talking portion in front of where I first grew up. So, pick up locations. I don't know why. This is fucking perfect. All right, so I'm gonna park and then walk down the block and show you what's up. Okay guys, so just touched down. I'm gonna leave all my stuff here, and I'm gonna give you a little walking tour quick before I get into today's video. I'm gonna cut it up real nice. So I grew up in this building up here, and I believe we were on the 3rd floor. So 1, 2, 3. And that right there, hold on, let's see if I'm pointing the right one. That one was my bedroom window. I distinctly remember that. I remember everything about this building, but I was here until I was like 8. Well, later when I ended up working at the Waverly, which is in this neighborhood, industry spot. It's like, at the time it was like $3 beer or $5 beers and $3 burger, something crazy like that. So you come here after work, stuff your face, get real drunk. This is the spot to do it. But iconic spot, Corner Bistro. This is the iconic photo you'll see on like postcards and stuff. and then all in there, super charming, a lot of stuff. Same thing down that way. A little more mainstream this way. That's that gas station I always stop at. But this was my first memory of life in America. So that was my first impression of this place. When I got here, when I was 5 months old, this is where I touched down. Well, airport first, then came back to that window you saw. But that's where it all started. All right, I'm gonna jump back on the bike, not on the bike, but sitting physically on the bike, and we're gonna do this little segment. Had kind of an awakening in here. Let's see, time to start this section. I wanted to kind of take a pause from the current trajectory that my videos have been traveling along. Over the past couple days, if you've watched all other videos, then you know where I'm at. I've kind of chronicled my life in stages. So the before I entered school phase, then the grade school era, then the college era, and then the college to working life transition. And that's been incredibly informative and exciting for me to kind of look at my life that way and see the cycles that I've gone through and see how they've affected me. And that is very important to this channel and finding myself and figuring out my path. I'm not disregarding any of that work, but I am thinking, last night I was editing and I was starting to think, I haven't mentioned adoption yet. In yesterday's video I said, I have not talked about adoption yet, but it's coming at a later point. And what I realized was, I'm kind of, in thinking forward in this series, in this project, I've placed all the emphasis on a couple events that happened that absolutely did have to do with adoption, but they were really, the events that I'm thinking of were a culmination of a lot of other stuff that I've yet to even cover or talk about. So like, those events, I'll get to those events, but what I realized was I need to look back at my life and try to identify the adoptee aspects, even though in the moment and in those times, I didn't make a thing of them. Like, that's the whole point is, that I think it was video 3 that I talked about the years before I entered grade school. And I said I really couldn't think of anything. It wasn't really a thing. Not entirely true, not entirely honest, and that's the point. Things happened, but I didn't make a point of them, and they weren't all that important to me, which is important in itself. So what I wanted to spend today doing is pausing the current journey for a second and going back over those years and trying to figure out events that happened, whether or not I thought they were pivotal or monumental or changed how I thought or saw the world, regardless of my interpretation of them. Just what were things that happened that involved race and involved me being adopted and struck me as something that I thought that might be different or something. So that's what today's video is going to be about. I'm going to take some time and I'm going to do my little session here. I'm going to talk it out a few times because it takes that to get to any point. And then I'm gonna share the bullet points that I walk away with in an hour or so when I figure all that out. So yeah, hang out for a minute. All right, guys, so, geez, this was a tough one. Oh, man. This one's a bit scattered and was a little more difficult to get through. It's not as linear as the previous couple videos. Essentially, I look back over the past couple years, talk through the past couple years to identify events that occurred in my life that had to do with being Asian. And really the conclusion I came to was how being adopted prevented me from addressing those issues of being Asian is really the dynamic that emerged. So I'm going to list through a couple of the things void of any like reaction. I'm going to tell you the blank facts of things that I remember, and then I'm going to go on to explain how I think how Asian affected my reaction to those events, which led to me getting to this point. I think that's the exercise here. So, let's see. To start, I remember, I mentioned this in a previous video, always gravitating towards people of color. Asian, Black, Hispanic. In like my kindergarten and first summer camp, my friends were always of color of some sort. I think that speaks to just that animalistic human thing of like, I want to be around people who look like me, right? Secondly, I remember my mom specifically telling my adoption story multiple times to like friends of the family and friends and my friends' friends, just everybody, which did a couple things, I think, but I'll get to that in a minute. I remember everyone in the neighborhood this is the third point, so everyone in this neighborhood who just mostly is white. I don't know if you look at the demographics on like the census is probably broken down differently, but the exposure that I had was most of the people I ran into were white. And those people telling me how handsome I was and how cute I was and wow. And those are mostly older white folks. Now, okay, not explaining yet. Point 4, never felt very attractive. Probably pretty universal for a lot of people, but despite everyone telling me how handsome I was, didn't feel that way. Fourth point, I remember a particular event I had with an Asian girl in high school who was interested in me. I was one of 4 Asians in the school. It was me in sophomore year, this girl in senior year. Well, I was in junior year, she was in senior year, and then sophomore year were her 2 cousins. She was interested in me. We went on a date. It went well. Got my second kiss in life. We texted all surrounding that date, but I just didn't want to be with an Asian person. That one's a little bit murky for me because I really just don't understand, given the context of me being lonely and feeling not unwanted and, just wanting a girlfriend and some connection, to finally get it and then be like, no, because she's Asian. It's fucking mind blown to me. But that was an event that I washed over pretty quickly, to be honest, and stuck out to me as clearly telling me something. I always felt the need to declare, this is point 5, I always felt the need to declare that I was Asian. So that's all throughout my life. So like even in like middle school, I would work it into a story somehow. We were playing soccer this weekend and I'm Asian, so I'm like the fastest on the team or whatever, I just made that up, but whatever the story was, I found a way to slip it in there that I was Asian. And when I got to high school, it was more of telling Asian jokes around my white friends, which was never called for. In fact, they usually were like, why are you doing that? But I remember doing that as well. And then in general, another general note, so point 6 was kind of like seeing the world. I realized I don't know when I realized this, but I continually, for as long as I can remember, think of Asian people. It's different now because I'm a little more mature, but saw Asian people as Chinese food delivery guys or kung fu movies, like martial arts movies. And I never thought that was me. Like I never saw any connection. I never felt any connection to any Asian I saw. I just saw them as Asians. And slightly comedic at that, like the culture, the language, the everything just seemed kind of funny to me, like, So those were the main things and themes and points that I could remember throughout my life. Now I want to go back and kind of explain how I think adoption shaped why I reacted the way that I did to those things, and also how they came to be. So, what was that? In regards to the adoption story that my mother would tell, I always felt this was like kind of a multi-tiered thing. I felt that, one, I kind of had to be grateful a little bit because the story had to be told. So like, I don't recall any of my friends' parents telling me how they were born. And I know it's slightly different. But the fact that how I came to be had to be explained meant that it was something not normal. There was an extra step in there that most people didn't have. Now I know there's people who get like born on a mountain and have to be like flown out, and so that's like a worthwhile birth story. But I think for the most part, people don't explain how their children come to be. And then the story was always kind of couched in two different aspects. One was the way I was adopted. So like when I was born, I had an intussusception, so my intestines like ate each other up. So basically, they had to do a surgery. When they were doing the surgery in Korea, my parents didn't get any information. They were like basically blocked out. So like they didn't know if I was alive. They didn't know what was going on. So my parents leaned on a friend who was very well traveled and had connections across the world to like try to snake their way in and figure out what the hell was going on. Through a friend of his, they were able to get photos of me and some records and some like feedback, and eventually push me through the backlog, right? So the telling of that part of the story made me feel very like, again, thank you so much for all the hard work that was done on my behalf to get me here, right? And then the third element was, I think, just natural for people of that age. Is like you're in your, I guess they were in their mid-30s, or having a kid, and they starting the new careers, moving back to New York, expensive apartment. There were a lot of there's a lot of surrounding context that they always would tell as well with this story. And so the issue of money came up always in there as well, of like, we were stretched so thin, we didn't know how we were going to do this, and we were paying for the adoption, we were paying for the new home, we were paying for everything. And so it just made me feel, that part of the story made me feel like I was a thing that was bought, right? Now, at the end of the day, when you have a kid, you pay for the hospital bills and everything. It's kind of the same, but it's kind of not, because I just felt like an object that was purchased, and I was the object, and I needed to be thankful for the struggle of getting me here. And also, we have to tell this story because it is a story. It's special, it's something different, right? So I remember not at the time feeling uncomfortable with that, but I remember thinking it odd. Even at a younger age, thinking like, why are we telling this again? Why do we have to keep telling this, you know? I think being adopted affects that. Well, that is the story of being adopted. So it's not like being adopted affects that. That is that. So being adopted makes it feel like being born and being raised is a service, and you are the object of that service, I think. So yeah. Secondly, the point of people telling me I'm attractive and then being primarily white. I think that's fairly common for everyone. Like I think that's just commonplace. I know this. So like if you have friends who have a baby, you meet the baby, you're not going to say, well, that's an ugly baby. You're going to say, oh, he's so cute, and when they grow up, like, wow, he's so handsome, right? I think it's just a normal thing. So in hindsight, I don't think that it was atypical of the people in the neighborhood to get to know my parents and then say that about their child. I do think that adoption affects that dynamic because, especially interracial adoption, because now there is a dynamic, even if I'm too young to understand it, it's people who don't look like me, who I'm surrounded by nonstop, telling me that I'm good looking. Now I'm questioning it from a different point of view, from just, are you being a polite adult? It's,
you're white as well, so are you telling me that I'm handsome because the expectation was different when you bought me? Like, am I atypical in that way? Like, you know, and also layered in there, I never felt attractive at school. I never had a girlfriend until the last year of high school. So like, up until then, when people would tell me I'm handsome, my main thought would be like, how come no one's wanted to go to the dance with me? How come I don't have a girlfriend, right? It's probably for other reasons, but but that's how it felt at the time. And I think being adopted, being Asian in a white setting leads you to question yourself in that way. Like, I don't know how many other people felt attractive when they were a kid, but I certainly didn't. And I think I had to question whether or not I was attractive, because I would see the kids who would get girlfriends and be socially accepted as attractive, but I'm not that, so how could you tell me I'm that? So I think being adopted puts you at a disadvantage in assessing and well, really loving yourself, like valuing yourself for who you are and really seeing yourself accurately, being able to make a sound judgment is where I landed with that one. As for the woman I dated, well, went on a date with and didn't want to date her because she was Asian, I can't figure that one out. I think there was some level of shame because I saw Asian people through white eyes. I think it was just a lot. I think there was a lot of confusion. I don't know with that one. That one's pretty deep, but I think I don't know if I was either scared of being around Asians for the fear of having to approach the subject, or if I felt guilty in some way for not being, I don't know, I'm not sure. Maybe I felt guilty for seeing Asians in the way that I do, but then being with one. Or maybe, you know, in all honesty, I think perhaps I was trying to pass, and like maybe being with an Asian would take me further away from me passing as a white person. I'm not entirely sure when I think back from my eyes at that time. I don't know. I think it's a combination of all those three things looking back at it, but I can't tell you. Yeah. Having to identify that I am Asian from even a young age to almost even now, to make it known that I'm Asian, you know, it's interesting because I am Asian and you can tell. I don't think there's any question in that. So my compulsion to somehow work into the story that I'm Asian, I think is a bit of, you know, well, let me go back to the main question of how being adopted affected me dealing with that or caused that. And I think it's, again, that it's a statement that needs to be made, that when you are adopted into a different culture and a different race, you are inherently different, and so you kind of I think if you're realistic with yourself, you know you won't physically assimilate. So the next best thing is to socially assimilate, which would mean let's get that elephant out of the room and start moving forward. Let's address it. It also is, you know, I think being adopted generally, how you get to that point is that you know that you're different and that you will always be different and that you have to state that you're different, whether it's physically or verbally. It's something that has to be considered. Whether or not the people around you are the ones perpetuating that line of thinking is a different story, but I felt that I needed to declare that this was a thing, for the hopes of truly assimilating, or maybe hoping that people don't reject me because of that. Yeah. And then the last piece that I arrived at was kind of identifying the means by which I use to smooth over all of these issues. The means by which I use to smooth over the issues, which at the beginning was very useful and still is very useful, but gone unchecked can completely miss the plot. It's as close as I can come. So let me explain. The house that I grew up in, the home that I grew up in, my parents were both journalists. They're both well-spoken, well-read, literate, kind of communicative and articulate people. And so we didn't have TV dinners. We didn't sit around listening to music. We talked. So heavy on communication and heavy on talking things out. So I think that's a wonderful skill to have, and I'm doing it right now. Like it's very much who I am, and I think it's a wonderful skill. It's great to be able to identify emotions and themes and complex subjects and break them down and talk about them. And it helps you understand the world, and it helps you understand, arguably, yourself. At a young age, I think that can often be the satisfaction that mechanic of talking things through can overshadow and overpower just being and feeling just because, and that is equally valid. So I think a lot of the things I was feeling, a lot of the themes in my life, and a lot of the events that occurred that revolved around me being Asian when I was younger, I was able to, my parents were able to work to figure it out why I'm feeling those things and why it would make sense that I'm feeling those things, which helped me get through them, but it didn't address them. So I think that's a large part of why I'm at where I'm at now, because multiple times, I've mentioned this in the previous video, in the beginning of this one, there are a couple events where that I'm thinking of in my head that I kind of thought of as the issues surrounding my adoption. They're not. They're the culmination of and the bubbling over of many previous events, and it had to do with me being Asian and my identity. So those were the physical representations of all this other stuff that happened. But because I can explain these other things away, I wasn't thinking of those as important or worth exploring, if that makes sense. So again, what was a virtue kind of turned into a vice in some regards. And at this point, I'm in the middle of that. So I think that part of it's really important. The individual elements that I shared and the points and how, I'll get back to that later, but I really wanted to take a break from pushing forward with my career and like what I did linearly in terms of time, because I felt that I was missing some things, and I certainly was. I don't know how to fully address them yet, but I wanted to put them on paper, on film, and share them a bit. So I'm going to leave it there. I think that's a good amount of work. That last part, super important, so I'm going to play around with that today, ride around for a bit. I haven't settled on where we're going next, so I'll check back in a little bit. I'll check back in when I figure out that part of it.
All right, guys. Let's see. Let me get rolling. I'm gonna head to the Dainese store, and I need to replace these garbage gloves anyway. And all my shit was sitting in this pool of water that formed when I was filming. So my bag is wet, and so are my gloves. So perfect opportunity for gloves. Bag is waterproof. Highly suggest this bag, Kriega R3. Love this little fanny pack, and protected all my extra tech shit. So thankful for that. But we're gonna ride over to the Dainese store, and I'm going to get some gloves. guts. All right, guys, hold up. Let me.
All right, guys. I'm gonna go in here and grab some new gloves. Although every time I go in here, I back off. But hold on. What's up, guys? Let me see. Oh, I got my sunglasses on in here. Hold up. Is this better? There we go. A little bit. New gloves. But I need something to fit the cruiser. So something simple. Going with these guys. I need these. What's up? How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm okay. So my favorite store to like fantasy window shopping. Fucking Dainese, baby. What I really want is, they don't have it, actually this one right here. The pista. And I have all the leather stuff that I need right now, but I need a new jacket. I would like a new jacket, particularly this one right here. Wait. Ba-ba. Mine is like 4 years old, super beat up, but I don't even ride the triple all that much anymore. Ducati Street Fighter V4 Lamborghini edition. It's like $30,000 more than the other one for no reason other than the green paint, so I'm okay. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. I see you. All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. There we go. That's much better. All right, guys. Finally got some new gloves. It's been years in the making. I've had those other gloves that I wore in the beginning of the day for like, I don't know, 3 years now. But anyway, I'm going to end the video here today. I'm going to see my mother, do a few errands, head on home. Interesting day today. Different vibe, different type of progress, and different lessons learned. Might need to take a few days for that one. But good to tie back together, and I suppose, I don't know, I need a little bit of time to think about that one, because that was looking at things that I hadn't previously thought relevant, kind of caught me blindsided, so I'm going to wrestle with that later. I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to enjoy this sunny day. Thanks for tuning in, and subscribe for more content about identity-related issues, Korean American adoptee-related issues. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.